The November Breakthrough, Rewriting Your Failure. Year with the Growth Mindset. We are here. It's November 2025. The final pages of the calendar begin to weigh heavily. It's that silent, intense period wedged between the year-end rush and the internal judgment that accumulates in every quiet thought. Social media is already beginning its annual ritual. Your feeds are starting to fill with the first year in review posts, filtered achievements, fresh starts, and carefully curated victories narrated with perfect golden captions. And for many of us, a quiet, uncomfortable question arises, almost a whisper in the back of the mind. And me? What did I actually do this year? If you feel that 2025 has simply slipped through your fingers, that your biggest plans were left half-finished, or tragically didn't even make it off the paper, this video is a mirror. Not one that shows what you have been, but one that brutally reveals what you can still become. Because the truth is this: the crushing feeling of failure you carry right now is not necessarily a reflection of objective reality. It may simply be the reflection of a mindset, an invisible mental framework that violently distorts your perception of progress and potential. Carol Dweck, a revolutionary psychologist and researcher at Stanford, dedicated her life to studying what fundamentally separates people who bounce back from difficult years from those who sink into guilt, self-criticism, and silent resignation. And her discovery is simple, yet brutally revealing. What defines your future is not how much you failed, but how you interpret that failure. According to Dweck, there are two primary cognitive frameworks: the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. This subtle difference is what determines whether you end a year like 2025 feeling like an absolute failure or a focused learner about to take the next deliberate leap. The fixed mindset whispers that nothing will ever change, that if you haven't succeeded by now, you are permanently incapable of success. It turns mistakes into an identity sentence. I am a failure. It seeks blame, feeds shame, and ultimately, it paralyzes. The growth mindset, on the other hand, asks entirely different, far more productive questions. It asks, what did 2025 attempt to teach me? What specific strategies failed? What can I do differently now that I possess this hard-won knowledge? For those who truly adopt this mindset, a difficult year is not a graveyard of dreams. It's an incredibly rich mine of data, hard lessons, and invisible preparation for something much greater. This video is not shallow motivation. It is an intervention, a provocation, a necessary push for you to stop interpreting your year as a final report card of failures and start seeing everything it revealed about who you are, and most importantly, who you still have time to become. You are still in control. November is not the end. It's a critical checkpoint. There is still time. Time to reflect honestly, reclaim your own narrative, and transform what seemed like a devastating defeat into the sharpest turning point of your entire journey. If you are watching this, you have already taken the crucial first step. You refuse to end another year feeling smaller than you truly are. Let's understand together how to rewrite the narrative of 2025, starting right now. The fixed mindset, the distorted lens of identity. Imagine wearing a distorted lens that you don't even realize is covering your eyes. This lens doesn't change reality itself. It changes the way you brutally interpret it. A challenge becomes a threat. A simple mistake becomes an act of humiliation. A failed attempt becomes the absolute final evidence that you were never good enough. This lens has a name: fixed mindset. And it is precisely this that makes so many people end the year with a suffocating sense of failure, even when, objectively, they faced only the normal obstacles that anyone in life encounters. Carol Dweck describes the fixed mindset as a cognitive trap that springs from the core belief that your essential qualities, Intelligence, discipline, creativity, resilience are immutable fixed traits. If you believe that these are fixed, then every bad outcome immediately translates into an identity sentence. You stop analyzing what happened strategically and start concluding, "I am the problem." This type of thinking is subtle, sneaky, and profoundly self-destructive. When a major goal is not achieved, the fixed mind doesn't ask, "What can I learn from this strategy?" It asks, "Why am I so utterly useless?" When a project fails, it doesn't evaluate the approach, it judges its own essence. "I will never be like others." These are questions that seek no actual answers. They only serve to reinforce emotional punishment. And what is far more dangerous, the fixed mindset immediately paralyzes. By turning failures into permanent, non-negotiable diagnoses, it destroys the motivation to try again. After all, why persist if every unsuccessful attempt only confirms that you are fundamentally not good enough? The result is stagnation. Entire years are lived in a state of deep psychological defense, where the main goal is not to grow, but simply to avoid new evidence that you are not enough. Dweck observed this in students who gave up after one bad grade, in professionals who sabotaged their own careers for fear of appearing incompetent, and in adults who abandon old dreams because they believe they should have already succeeded. It is a mentality of continuous, merciless judgment. But here is the central liberating point. The fixed mindset does not reflect reality. It reflects a conditioned interpretation, often learned in childhood, reinforced by a performance culture, and amplified by constant social comparison. As long as this lens remains unquestioned, it will continue to filter every moment of your life, especially the most difficult ones, as irrefutable proof of your defeat. Before moving forward, take a genuine pause and reflect. What destructive narratives did you construct for yourself in 2025? How many times did you conclude that one mistake defined you? How many opportunities did you avoid simply out of the fear of seeing yourself once again as incapable? These questions are the non-negotiable starting point for the turnaround. Because there is another way to see all of this, a different kind of mindset that does not magically erase failures, but brutally transforms them into rocket fuel. The growth mindset, transforming failures into data. If the fixed mindset is a distorted lens, the growth mindset is an X-ray, one that interprets failures as pure, valuable data. It's a lens that doesn't ask, "What's wrong with me?" but rather, "What can I do differently with this information?" This is the direct, powerful antidote to the paralysis of failure. When you truly grasp the depth of this mentality, what once seemed like the absolute end of the line reveals itself, in fact, as the true beginning of mastery. The growth mindset, according to Carol Dweck, stems from a single powerful, liberating belief that our fundamental abilities, intelligence, and core capacities are not fixed traits. They are profoundly developable, and this belief changes everything. Because if you can evolve, then every obstacle becomes a laboratory, every mistake becomes a concrete source of data, and every failure becomes a sharp, undeniable clue about where and how to adjust your course. This mentality is not naive. It doesn't deny the pain, nor does it pretend to be empty optimism. The growth mindset faces the exact same problems as the fixed mindset, but it responds in a radically different, strategic way. In the face of an unmet goal, it asks, "Was this approach the most efficient? What specific variable can I adjust now based on what I've learned?" When confronted with an unexpected result, it investigates, where is the actual bottleneck? Was it a lack of skill, an inefficient strategy, or simply insufficient support? The core difference is not in the pain felt, but in what you actively do with that pain. And here is an essential point. The quality of the questions you ask yourself defines the entire direction of your life. Destructive questions, e.g., "Why am I so incompetent?" generate answers that feed self-guilt and shame. Constructive questions, e.g., "What did 2025 powerfully teach me?" immediately open up space for resilience, focused action, and strategic next steps. In practice, the growth mindset instantly transforms the year 2025 into a field of intensive learning. Not because everything went right, but precisely because a lot went fundamentally wrong. This is the secret so many people fail to realize. Difficult years are almost always the richest in terms of psychological development, if you only know how to consciously explore them. Dweck proposes using negative experiences as raw material for reconstruction. For her, true destructive failure is not making mistakes, falling, or missing a goal. True failure is failing to extract anything from it. It is going through an entire year without documenting the learnings, without rethinking strategies, without transforming stumbles into calculated adjustments. This is the only kind of failure that truly destroys: failure without awareness. The 3-step method, reframing 2025. Now that we understand the transformative power of a growth mindset, we need to go beyond mere theory. Knowing that your mindset influences perception isn't enough. You need concrete tools to reframe what you experienced in 2025. This is where Carol Dweck delivers one of the most valuable legacies of her research: a practical, brutally honest process to reconstruct the narrative of a year that, at first glance, seems to have been a total failure. Step 1. The honest audit and wisdom extraction. Here, there is absolutely no room for denial or comforting fantasy. You will look directly at the goals you set and did not achieve. You will confront head-on what was left behind, but not to blame yourself, to investigate. Next to each major unmet goal, write down 3 fundamental questions. 1. What concrete skill or knowledge did I learn from simply trying this? 2. What unexpected external obstacles did I face that I could not have predicted? 3. What core assumption did I hold that turned out to be fundamentally wrong? This exercise is an extraction of wisdom. You are not performing an autopsy on failure. You are mining the raw data that failure provided. You are separating paralyzing emotion from actionable information. You are training your brain to interpret setbacks as opportunities for strategic refinement. Step 2. Identifying the invisible wins, psychological capital. This part is essential and highly counterintuitive. Dweck discovered that in difficult years, many of the greatest achievements do not show up in traditional metrics. They do not become year-in-review posts, but they are profoundly real achievements, sometimes more important than those you can easily count. Ask yourself, what kind of resilience did I have to build just to get through the toughest months? What kind of pain forced me to mature and clarify my priorities? What emotional limits did I learn to respect? What relationships were tested and ultimately strengthened? You may not have launched that huge project, but you learned to handle brutal rejection with grace. You may not have changed careers, but you faced your first 5 job interviews in years. You may not have achieved perfect discipline, but you created small, consistent self-care habits that once seemed impossible. All of this counts. All of this is psychological capital, but it only becomes useful if you consciously recognize and document it. Step 3. The iterative strategy for 2026. Now that you hold what you learned and what you quietly built, it's time to revisit the unmet goals and redesign them, but with a new, smarter mindset. Ask, how would I approach this challenge now with what I know today? What smaller, more sustainable first step can I commit to? What external support, a coach, a mentor, a course, can I actively seek? You are not repeating the previous failed attempt, you are prototyping a new, improved version. Here lies the true strength of the growth mindset. It does not demand perfection, it demands progression. It does not idealize major, sudden turnarounds. It values small, consistent iterations. Repeating the same mistakes is the definition of a fixed mindset. Adjusting your movements based on what has been learned. That is evolution. This three-step process is what separates those who go through a difficult year and carry only frustration from those who turn that very same year into a launching pad. Because in the end, the question is not what went wrong, but rather, what am I going to do with what went wrong? And the answer to that question begins with action, even if it's imperfect, even if it's small. The 4 techniques. Actionizing the mindset. Having a growth mindset is an essential starting point, but if that perspective doesn't translate into concrete, visible action, it remains just a beautiful, inspiring, but ultimately sterile idea. Dweck understood this. For a change in perspective to truly transform your life, it needs to be incorporated into visible, repeatable, and deliberate practices. She developed techniques that not only adjust how we think about failure, but actively train us to interpret our experiences with greater emotional intelligence and strategic depth. 1. The not yet reframe technique. Instead of saying, I failed to achieve goal X, you consciously begin saying, I haven't achieved goal X yet. This tiny linguistic change completely rewires your belief system. Not yet implies that you are currently in progress, that the process is ongoing, and that the mistake is not a final endpoint. It is a temporary, necessary step. The real power comes when you add the specific learning. I haven't achieved goal X yet, but I found out that I need to seriously adjust my morning routine and eliminate half of my digital distractions. Structure, not yet. Extracted learning. You transform a supposed final failure into an intelligent bridge for a smarter attempt. 2. The failure resume. Create a new kind of professional document. In it, you list not your professional achievements, but the major mistakes, setbacks, and frustrations that marked your year. Next to each one you write, what did I learn from this? How did this strengthen me? What new skill or realization emerged from this experience? This practice directly challenges the cultural norm that failures are things to hide or forget. Instead, you document them as crucial steps in your building process. By doing this, you realize that 2025 was not a lost year. It was a mandatory year of experimentation, painful discoveries, and invaluable tests that no course or book could have taught you. 3. Prototype 2026. The now start. The logic here is critical. You don't have to wait until January 1st to start living the improved version of yourself. If you are waiting for a turn of the calendar, you are perpetuating the same fixed mindset cycle of procrastination masked as planning. Prototype 2026 means taking the biggest habits, goals, and projects you want to execute next year and testing minimal micro versions of them right now, still in November or December. Want to write a book? Write one focused paragraph a day right now. Want to start a business? Test your idea by talking to 5 people. Want to change your routine? Adjust your bedtime by 15 minutes for 1 week. Start small, but start now. Growth does not respect the calendar. 4. Growth partnerships, transforming envy to insight. Dweck challenges us to transform envy into actionable insight. Think of someone who has successfully achieved what you want. Instead of simply admiring them or feeling inferior, the fixed mindset reaction, send them a respectful, direct message. Ask for 15 minutes of that person's time. Frame a specific question. What was the most effective strategy you used to deal with your earliest failures? People with a fixed mindset avoid this contact because they believe another's success diminishes them. People with a growth mindset transform others' success into spontaneous mentorship. This simple, courageous action can cut years off your learning journey. The true failure, unlearned pain. But even with all these techniques, there is a final, perhaps most dangerous trap. The silent belief that it is already too late, that the year is over, that there is no more time to reverse anything. This belief is the last bastion of the fixed mindset and needs to be destroyed immediately. There is a type of failure that is silent, invisible, and far more destructive than any apparent defeat. It is the failure of those who go through an entire cycle, a whole year, and emerge from the other side exactly the same. Without new questions, without new strategies, without new learnings. This is the true failure, to go through pain and learn absolutely nothing from it. Many people believe they failed in 2025 because they didn't reach a specific external goal. But that in itself is not failure. That is life. Frustrated expectations, projects that don't take off, goals that turn out to be poorly calculated. All of this is a natural part of any real journey. It is not the detour that destroys you. It is your inability to extract meaning from what went wrong. That inability defines whether the year was lost or if it was the most important of your journey. Dweck makes this clear. The mistake is not the failure itself. It is the refusal to explore it with honesty and curiosity. When you fail, but investigate, learn, and adapt, you evolve. When you fail and only blame yourself or ignore it, you simply repeat. And repeating failures without learning does not strengthen you. It hardens you. You may have learned deep, valuable things in 2025, but because they came disguised as a crisis, you simply ignored them. Our culture is so obsessed with visible results that we fail to recognize when growth comes disguised as difficulty. You may have developed patience. You may have learned to deal with the soul-crushing sting of frustration. You may have discovered emotional boundaries you never noticed before. And all of this counts, but it only counts if it is consciously recognized. The simple fact that you are here watching this proves that you have not truly failed, because someone who truly fails does not seek to understand what happened. They are not interested in turning pain into insight. The fact that you stayed means there is a part of you, perhaps exhausted, that still believes in the possibility of rewriting the story of 2025. And the profound truth is, you still have time. We are not looking at the past as something untouchable. We are in November. There are still weeks, days, critical moments. There is still space for a conscious action, a powerful decision, a significant change. There is still time to transform 2025 from a lost year to a foundational year. The final challenge, from reflection to movement. You are still here. That means despite the weight of 2025, despite the feeling of stagnation, the frustration with everything that hasn't happened, you are still searching for meaning. Most people shut down, they distract themselves, they pretend not to care, but you stayed. You are facing the pain, questioning the narrative, seeking a new path, and that's exactly why this moment may be the most important of your entire year. Carol Dweck didn't write about mindset just to inspire. She wrote to liberate, to free you from the toxic belief that your worth depends on achieving goals, securing perfect results, or a flawless timeline. To free you from the idea that what went wrong in 2025 is proof of who you are. The transformation you seek won't happen all at once. It begins when you choose to look back with new eyes. It starts when you take an hour to do that honest audit. When you open a notebook and write down your learnings, even if it hurts. When you try again with a different approach. When you stop waiting for January 1st to fix your life and start fixing it now. Even without guarantees, even in November. That's what people with a growth mindset do. They don't wait for conditions to be ideal. They create traction in chaos. They make micro versions of the life they want to live, even amidst fatigue, doubt, and noise. And little by little, they rewrite the script. 2025 is not lost. 2025 is not over yet. And even if it has been the hardest year of your life, it can still become the most important year. The year you decided to stop carrying your failures as weights and started using them as tools. So, here is the challenge. Stop now and in the comments, write one sentence that defines what 2025 has taught you. Just one sentence. This is your first public step of rewriting your story. By putting this out there, you stop being a prisoner of the failure narrative and start building a new one. The journey you started here doesn't end now. It's just beginning. You've already made the first move. Keep going.